Thanks for that, Sumita. But let's break it down even further. The former CEO of Twitter India, now the co-founder of Fanery, Manish Maheshwari, is joining us on this edition of Rush Hour. Great to have you with us. Do tell us, from your perspective, as far as Elon Musk is concerned, he says he's not very impressed with Threads. But when you make that comparison from a user perspective, considering that Twitter has had this enormous head start over Threads, how do you think the two compare from a user perspective?
Yeah, so first of all, I think the timing is perfect. I think Twitter at this point is quite distracted, and also out of its own choice, Twitter is focusing a lot more on monetization and revenue. So clearly the goal of user growth and user experience and the whole goal of reaching more and more user, that has come on the sideline. So I think at this point in time, Meta launching Thread is quite a good timing. Now, in terms of comparison, right? So I've been trying this for the last couple of hours. So one thing that really hits you is how simple it is to set up. If you're an Instagram user, in a few clicks, you can get going. And that is no surprise that more than 10 million people have started using it, because the sign up process is quite easy for Instagram users. So they do have a head start. Now, the downside or the shadow of this whole integration is that context does matter. When you are on Instagram, you are a visual person, you are posting a picture, and maybe you're putting a caption, but the picture is the primary thing. And then when you go to Thread, immediately you have to switch context. So clearly people who have joined via Instagram, they will have to switch context. And the other thing also would be that it's not just about how many people have joined. How do you really instigate conversation and talk about difficult topics? And how do you make everything sort of real-time breaking so that people have interest in going back and providing their opinion and comments, something that Twitter does really well. So the question here would be, how soon can we see journalists breaking their stories on Twitter, and how does that conversation starts growing? So I think that's how I compare it. But overall, it does provide it's a serious threat to Twitter at this point in time. And the other cool part about this is that they're talking about interoperability or open network. So Thread would be one of the server on which you can get started, but then any other person can also have their own server in a very decentralized fashion, and the two can talk to each other, and you can share and sort of have easy transfer of conversation between these two. So that would be something very interesting, because it does have implications on how existing social networks operate, versus the whole move is moving towards a decentralized network, which is where this one is. So let me pause there.
Manish, because there are points plenty. Tell us, when Meta decides to piggyback on the success of an Instagram and perhaps to create this integrated network of sorts, is that a strategy that would work in today's context? Because as far as volumes go in terms of subscriptions, etc., it needs to work in Meta's favor, doesn't it?
See, it does give them a head start, right? So that is a clear advantage, but that is not a sufficient condition. Don't forget that, many years ago, Google started something called Google Plus to compete with Facebook in those days. But that was not successful despite the size and the might of Google. So just because a large player with a lot of funding and a lot of connections and a lot of user base is trying something, it is bound to be successful. That is not the case, because if that was the case, no new startup would ever be successful, because any startup competes with a giant in that industry, right? So the key question here would be, they have a head start, but how do you use that head start to understand and solve for a need of a customer who is undersolved or unsolved in today's market, right? And it could be an existing Twitter user who is unhappy with the way the platform is functioning these days, or it could be a new set of users who have never found love at Twitter. So if you look at the numbers, all said and done, Twitter only has about 300 to 400 million users. Now, Instagram has more than 1 billion users. So clearly we are talking about an order of magnitude more. So clearly there's a large number of user base which is not engaging in textual or idea or opinion driven conversation, or what we call is public conversation. So if this can make inroads into that new segment and new category, there is a huge market for them, but they have to get the fitment right. And just because Meta is doing it doesn't mean the fitment would be there. Clearly they have an advantage, but they will have to exploit the advantage and build upon it to solve for the user need.
Manish, what about revenue generation? Because Twitter boss Elon Musk has had his own struggles after he's come on. And of course, as far as revenue generation is concerned for an app of this nature, despite the deep pockets that Meta has, this is going to be a tall order right now at this point. How do you see that panning out?
I don't think they will focus on revenue on Thread at this point in time. My sense here would be that they would focus on getting it to a 1 billion user mark. That, in my mind, if I look at a couple of videos from Mark as well, he has clearly laid out that he sees more than 1 billion people using it. So clearly, that is the goal right now. The goal is to drive user growth and improve the reach and get to 1 billion users. And I don't think they need money right now because, see, they have other players or other products in their stable that are generating a lot of good revenues. Facebook is generating revenue, Instagram generates revenue, even WhatsApp, they have started monetizing. So there is no urgency for them to monetize this. They will clearly want this to be the #1 app or the platform for public conversation and sort of beat Twitter at a point in time when they are at their weakest when it comes to user growth and reach. And Twitter itself is focusing on monetization and not on user growth. So clearly that space is wide open. And none of the other players like Mastodon or Blue Sky are at this stage and at this size. So clearly, the focus for them would be user growth.
Manish, finally, this is also a clash of the titans between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. There has been a war of words on Twitter itself as a platform in the past, and they've come down to talking about a battle as far as a ring is concerned, a ring battle as well. So actually getting physical. But this is some kind of success or failure that is going to be played out between Twitter and Threads as well. How do you think the personalities are going to determine the success or failure of their respective brands?
This is the cage fight that they have been talking about. I don't think there's any other cage fight. This is the cage fight, and I think in my mind, it's also quite fun to watch from a distance because I think both of these individuals are pretty, I would say, passionate and driven individuals, and they really want to win, and both of them have a track record of winning and doing whatever it takes to win. So this is going to be a very interesting game that will play out. I think I feel that Mark is quite smart in this situation, and Elon has been distracted. So it might cause Elon to start getting more focused on Twitter and its user growth than he has been in the past. That could be a reaction from him. But my view would be, I am quite surprised with the quality and the timing as well as the way this has launched. And in one day, they have gathered 10 million users. So I've been playing myself with this. And if you look at the ecosystem as well, it's a great news for users and creators. I mean, we are in creator economy. I run a startup called Fenori. So my view would be that more such platforms, the better choice creators will have in terms of their content, in terms of monetization. So good news for the ecosystem because clearly, things were not working out in the way it was there in the past. And I think I'm hoping that things will be much better for both users and creators. The quality of conversation would improve. The monetization would also start improving. And also we will see that people will exercise choice and go after or go on the platform that is best for their needs. And I think good for everyone.
Well, choice is always good from a consumer standpoint. As far as businesses go, we'll see exactly how it turns out for Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Manish, thanks very much for joining us with your perspective on Russia. Great having you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikram, for having me on your show.